What's up everyone? Welcome back to the shop. We're gonna do a really cool scroll saw picture today. I've got this awesome art here by Paul Davidson. It's just like, love it. So I want to take this and turn it into wood. Now to start, usually I like to make my own picture frames for doing my scroll saw art because the picture frame's kind of part of the artwork. So if you're not interested in making a picture frame, then you could always go to this time stamp and just skip ahead to this timestamp. I don't know what that time is right now because I haven't edited. I'm talking, just go here. If not, let's make a picture frame. Got all my frame pieces milled up, so now it's time to cut the rabbet in the frame to hold the artwork. Now, sometimes I'll assemble the whole frame and then go over to the router table and then route it out. Sometimes I'll cut it before I do the assembly. So this time I'm gonna do that because, well, just what I feel like doing. Picture frame is looking really good, but I don't want to glue it up just yet. I want to do some stuff to this frame to make it really cool, but I got to have the artwork kind of started before I do that. So I'm going to take the frame, set off to the side. We'll deal with it later. So now let's look at that artwork. Now it looks like the background should be kind of a light color, and then we have those super dark blacks for the shadows. So to make this picture, I'm going to take a piece of 1/2 inch thick MDF. That's going to be our substrate to start putting all our pieces on there. And then I think I need to start off by taking some wenge and making our own wenge veneer. That way we make the veneer, we glue it onto our substrate. That's going to be perfect for those shadows. My veneer is ready to go. It's probably a 1/16 of an inch thick, something like that. I don't really do a whole lot of precise measurements with this. I go by eye and feel. And I've got my glue. I'm going to use Unibond 1. This is made specifically for doing lamination and veneering. So far my experience with this has been really good. I'm going to take it, I use a roller, apply it to my substrate, throw it into my veneer press, clamp this thing down. Veneer press, awesome, makes this job way easier, and also a video on how to make this, so I'll throw a link down in the description if you want to make your own. Our panel needs to sit in the press for at least a couple hours. So while that's drying, I can start working on making that light background for our picture. And I think I have the perfect piece of maple for this. I got my wenge panel here, and then on the back side, I just put a piece of cherry, because whenever you're veneering, it's always best practice to veneer both sides of a panel. It prevents any sort of cupping. So we'll set this off to the side, and then I have this beautiful maple panel that we made, really cool linear grain. That is going to be an awesome background for our picture. For the picture, I printed it off and it took 4 sheets of paper. So I need to take these and stick them all together. I'll just use some tape, make one big picture, and then take some spray adhesive and stick it onto our panel. I like to cover the entire thing in packing tape. It helps to prevent any sort of fraying as we're cutting. And then we can start scroll sawing. I want to look like the fist is punching through the picture, but also punching through the bottom of the frame. So I held off on gluing the frame together because I wasn't quite sure if it'd be easier to cut this piece before I glue it together or after. And now that I have the artwork done, I can tell that I could glue this together now, and I think that would give me a stable work surface so I could put this on my scroll saw table and then make all of my cuts. I think this is looking pretty cool. I took my artwork and I glued it into my frame. Now I couldn't do that if it was a solid piece of wood because it would expand and contract and eventually it would break the picture frame. But this is a piece of MDF, so I can do that. And by gluing it, it strengthens the entire thing, strengthens these miter joints, which are a little bit weak. And now I have one big piece of art. For all the pieces that we're gonna put on there, I went ahead and prepped those materials while I was waiting for the glue to dry. So I decided I'm gonna make the hat out of walnut, and then his skin tones are gonna be sycamore. Now we're dealing with a couple of different thicknesses of pieces here. We've got his fist, which is closest to you. That's gonna be the thickest piece. His face is kind of sunken in the back of the picture, so that's gonna be the thinnest. And then all the rest of the pieces kind of fall in between. I'm gonna start with making his hat. I'm gonna take my time just to cut this out because there's no point in sticking all of this paper onto my workpiece. It would just be in the way. This is a really cool piece of walnut. It's got a lot of figure in it, a lot of different colors, and I think that would provide some shadow effect to this hat, kind of give it a cooler look. Now I'm looking at it, his hat seems to, kind of be sloped down a bit, so I am not just gonna stick it onto my board. I think I'm gonna tilt it just a bit and try to capture that grain so the grain runs the way the hat would run naturally. We got a pretty sweet hat here. I like how the grain flows with this walnut. Kind of gives the cap a little bit of shadow. So now it's time to work on the face. Now I'm going to make sure that I keep my offcuts because the offcuts are going to help me to register the face where it needs to be at, so it ends up where it's supposed to be and not like, you know, on the elbow or something. The face is all done, and I think it's kind of cool that whenever you take a step back, all that negative space now becomes the illusion of shadow on his face and on his hat. Now, I did have to take some holly and make the eyes and then the teeth out of that because it's the whitest wood that you could possibly get. Now, this was kind of a pain because those pieces are super tiny, but I was able to get them into place. I think it looks pretty good. Now it's time to work on that fist. So I printed off my template here. I can take a look at it and I see that the majority of it is really one big piece. The thumb will be a separate portion there, but all the rest of it is one giant component. Now, there are a lot of cuts here, especially the lines going across the fingers. So we better get to work. I sand everything with 180 grit, rounded over all the edges just to kind of give it more of a softer feel. Looks a little bit more 3D that way. Now I'm applying finish. This is just a tiny little brush so I can get that finish in all those nooks and crannies. Now I'm using Armor Seal satin. It's a really good finish. It's a wipe-on varnish so you can apply it with a rag. So I'm going to try to get it in all these tight spots with the brush first. Then I'll come back with a rag and make sure that everything is smoothed out. Figure out who this is yet? It is Jake Lockley, better known as Moon Knight. So if you are a comic book fan, you might know who Moon Knight is. If you don't read comic books, it's kind of an obscure character. Moon Knight's kind of a weird dude. He has multiple personalities that kind of switch back and forth depending on what's going on. The three main ones, you got Mark Spector, who's a mercenary. You got Stephen Grant, who's an actor, producer, director, rich guy. And then you have this guy, Jake Lockley, who's a cab driver who's kind of violent and likes to punch people. So I saw this when I was reading a Moon Knight comic, loved this picture, and decided I'm going to make this. And what I like about it is you don't have to be a comic book fan to think this is a pretty cool picture. So you can hang this up. People are going to like it. But if you are a comic book fan, you kind of have that little extra, hey, I know who that is. So I thought it was pretty cool. This turned out so cool. And it's always a great feeling to be able to see a project or see some art, want to make it, and then once you do, it turned out exactly what you were expecting. That's what happened with this. I love the final result. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel and maybe check out this other video over here. And if you like this content, you'll probably like the content of my main woodworking channel, Newton Makes. So head on over there and give it a subscribe. And till we meet again, get in your shop and build something awesome.